of course, SAG-AFTRA. Give it up for SAG for supporting the next generation of storytellers and creators. I'm Shira Lazar. I'm the founder and CEO of What's Trending. We are a digital media brand and publisher. I've been in the creator space for, oh my Lord, too long, 2 decades. And it's amazing to see how far it's come and where it's going. And today I'm really honored to be moderating this panel and as one of the hosts of this event to talk about the future of this space and how we make it sustainable. So this conversation, I'm about to bring on our panelists, but it's really about talking about the future, the sustainability, ethics, how we bring value to it, how we negotiate contracts, how do we create financial security and stability. Do you guys want money? Yes, we want that. We want to be paid for our work. And we want to figure out how to do it together and build a healthy and happy space and safe space for all of us. So that's what we're going to be getting into. We're also going to open it up for questions. So if you have some questions, we'll take some questions in a moment. With that, let's introduce our panelists. We've got Shaine Griffin, the Director of Contract Strategic Initiatives and Podcasts at SAG-AFTRA. Give it up for Shaine. One of our sponsors and partners. What a great support. Would not be here without Shaine's support, so thank you, Shaine. It means a lot. Next up, Patrick Janelle, the founder of Untitled Secret, a digital talent management agency, and Untitled Social, a social media content studio for brands. Patrick's also a creator. Patrick, welcome to the stage. Next up, we've got actress, writer, digital creator. You might know her from Even Stevens and Kim Possible. Give it up for Christy, Carlson, Romano. And finally, I got to meet him at the White House, the last White House, doing great things. He's a medical graduate, host of the Dose podcast with the Commonwealth Fund, science communicator, known as the medical mythbuster with millions of followers. Give it up for Dr. Joelle Bervell. Wow, powerhouse panel we have here. Okay, well, each of you have been in the creator space for a long time in many ways. I want to know how it's evolved for you and in terms of how you approach your business. And again, I want everyone here today who's watching to leave with actionable steps, right? Knowing that they can leave here to bring something to their business and their content. So I guess let's start. Well, Shaine, you're on the contract side, and I do want to get to that, but let's start with you.
Are you looking at me?
Yeah, no, I was looking at Patrick.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I have sunglasses on.
Right.
I was like, oh,
Okay.
no.
Yes, my name is Patrick Janelle. I am a content creator and the owner of Untitled Secret, a digital talent management agency. My creator journey started in 2011 when I joined Instagram, kind of early days, and I was really on the forefront of the creator industry, the creator economy, because I had a following when brands were starting to reach out, and there was an opportunity to capitalize on my audience. But this was the first time that I ever did a brand deal. A brand reached out to me and they were like, we're going to give you, this was Barber, the British heritage brand.
Okay.
They were like, we're going to give you an outfit and a bag if you can film a video. This is actually 2015 and they were doing video. You can film a video and post it on your Instagram. I was like, excuse me, you're going to give me clothes for posting on Instagram? Yes. Little did I know that there was actually going to be significant financial opportunities very soon after that. But I say that to say that I was on the very kind of early days of like even figuring out what it meant to like work with brands. So in terms of answering your question about the sort of like sustainability over the course of time, and I know that we'll kind of get into the details, but for me, it's always really been about finding your niche. And I think that I think that's a big conversation right now. And for many people, that means finding your niche audience. For me, it really was about finding my niche in the industry. And that's what really led me to take all of the know-how, my Rolodex, my experience, the ways that I was navigating the industry sort of like early days, so that by 2020, I decided that there was really a gap in the market for management, talent management, that I had never really found a good solution for myself. So I wanted to create that opportunity for other creators, build an agency for creators by a creator, so that we could have a type of talent management that really understood the holistic nature of what it means to be a social media entrepreneur. So for me, my niche was really kind of almost from the business side, really figuring out how to be sustainable while still being a full-time creator, building a business that also supported other creators.
And I love what you touched on, which I think will be a recurring theme you'll hear. Creators are entrepreneurs. We're basically small businesses. And I think the more we wrap our heads around that, the more we could start having other people understand why we're approaching our contracts and our business in a business way. And we need those, money, we need transactions, we need like support and protections. So I think that's amazing. And I want to also get later on your perspective of being that manager creator, which I'm sure has been very eye-opening. What about you, Christy? Because you started, of course, as an actress and have evolved into a creator. And of course, you still act and entertain.
I definitely identify as a creator first. It's something that I may not publicize, but it's really in my heart. You know what I'm saying? Because it really helped me bridge a massive divide with starting as traditional talent. And I've been a SAG member since I was 8 years old. I was telling Shaine, I was triple vested when I was 16. So the fact that I'm still in the fold in the unique way that SAG is helping and aiding, which we'll get into, I'm sure, creators as a whole is fantastic. So I do feel very much like I'm a part of a community. And like you're saying, being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of different tendrils that you're having to manage, and you're looking for team members and support anywhere that you can possibly get. So just a little backstory with me. I was obviously working with Disney, ended up going to Columbia and finishing my degree before I had kids. But right before, in 2016, a friend of mine who was like, I got some free Speedos and I was posing on, my man's yacht. You should try to get free stuff for your baby, because I had a baby cooking at the time. And I was like, okay, let's get some free baby stuff. And so it turned out that was my first sponsored deal. And it was a 12-month deal for I guess maybe around $100,000, right? And that for me was big. I didn't have a huge following number count. It wasn't just a vanity metric to have number count at the time. It's becoming more so now, versus actually having quality engagement, quality, virality, all of that stuff. And at the time, it took me out of a small space in LA and we moved down to a house in Orange County. So the impact for me was immediate in just one deal. And it changed the course of my child's life, my family's life. And it wasn't just about getting a free, stroller or Speedo or whatever thing you're looking for is. It became very real. And that's when my husband said, you know what? He is a writer and a producer. And he was like, I think I'm going to help you with this stuff. So it became much realer for us as a family business as well, except we decided we weren't putting our kids in this. We weren't going to be family vloggers. That was sort of the line that we drew very, very early on. We've grown from there. I started a YouTube page and really became a nuts and bolts creator, not just a small form creator, but it was like you had this entire YouTube channel to grow and develop. And that became your own network. And you could launch your own different shows that you wanted to do. I had multiple cooking shows. Fox Studios asked me and my husband during COVID, in the thick of COVID 2020, when nothing was being produced, to produce their first digital armed cooking show. And so it was called Bucket List Bistro. They gave us a $500,000 to produce 12 cooking show episodes that were supposed to look the best that they could. And then they edited it for us. Yeah. So we had some really great opportunities, but in between those opportunities were tremendous growth periods and learning curves and fighting for the algorithm. And as we know in media, the algorithm changes minute by minute, and it can be extremely frustrating, discouraging, and daunting. So, events like this are truly wonderful. And, I live in Austin. The vibe here is, leave your ego at the door. And that's what I've loved so much about living here since 2020 is truly just networking for the sake of something more creative and more passionate. And I hope that the city inspires everyone here to feel that way And, that's all.
No, thank you for sharing your journey. I also think it's interesting because a lot of people that are acting sometimes just use it as a promotional vehicle than actually saying, no, I'm a creator.
Yeah,
right?
I own that.
Yeah.
I own that for sure.
Which I think is awesome. Even now, when I introduce myself, in the past, I was a broadcaster because I was a host and an interviewer. Now, people, when you say that, people are like, what do you mean broadcaster? Like, I don't get what that means. Because I looked up to Ryan Seacrest and Katie Couric and Barbara Walters and Oprah. And now, but I say, no, I'm a creator. And what do you create? Well, I do hosting and interviewing and all that stuff. So even the verbiage of who you are changes as you go, and being able to lean into that. Actually, Don Allen, who's here, who's a creator, he's talking. He's in the back there. He updates his bio like every few weeks or months. Oh, like Kevin's saying, this is all friends and family here. I'm like, there's Kevin on the side. Giving him a shout out because I love what he said to me. He's like, don't be scared to update your bio all the time because the industry's changing, you're changing. Don't be too attached to what's worked, right? And I think we need to be open-minded to that as we go, right? You might get into AI and be like, I'm going to throw AI into that because I want to get AI brands. Now you're an AI expert, and maybe you're not yet, but you're a student. You will become an expert. Perception is reality. As long as you're taking action, take that action. Don't lie. So I just think that's so important to mention. Joelle is like an incredible doctor who became a creator. Why? Why did you decide that was important to you? And how did you even have the time? Well, residency and all your things.
Absolutely.
Saving the world, humans.
Well, first, thank you for having me here so much. So my creator journey started about 5 years ago when I started medical school. So I just graduated medical school last December 2024, and now waiting till start residency. But I started during my first year of medical school. And really, it was the COVID pandemic. If we all think back to that time, we were all at home, sitting alone. And I remember seeing so much misinformation and disinformation online when it came to vaccines or even what COVID was. But specifically for me, it was about how race, gender, and other inequities in medicine weren't being talked about in my medical school classes. And so my first video that I created that actually ended up going viral was about this device that many people may have seen but may not know much about, called a pulse oximeter. It's a device that goes in your finger and it measures what's called your blood oxygen saturation level, essentially how much oxygen is bound to your red blood cells. But I saw a study in December 2020 that showed that these devices are less likely to work in people with darker skin, like myself. They're 3 times as likely to lead to inaccurate, overestimated oxygen saturation levels, meaning that you could go to the doctor, be short of breath, but if you have darker skin, you have a higher likelihood of this device reading wrong on you. And as doctors, we use that device to know if we need to give someone supplemental oxygen or other different treatments. And so I saw that online through this New England Journal of Medicine article, and I said, how have I never learned about this in my pulmonology or my cardiology units? And so I did what any Gen Z/millennial would do. I jumped onto TikTok and made a 30-second video where I said, what does racial bias in medicine look like? And I explained what the pulse oximeter was, and that exact kind of disparity that I saw within it. And within less than 24 hours, it had over 500,000 views. And most of the comments were from doctors and nurses and people that use this device every single day, saying, I had no idea that it could lead to this disparity. Then there's patients saying, I wonder if this is what happened to me or my loved one, why they're no longer here today because they didn't get oxygen when they should have had it in the hospital. And that was my moment saying there's a way to actually intersect medicine with pop culture, but with media in order to give good information out there. And so that's become my mission. In 2020, TikTok named me the voice of change on the app. And I think that really launched a lot. And in it, they called me the medical mythbuster. And I was like, oh, I guess that is kind of what I do. I try and take these myths that exist out there and bust them so that we can give people the information they need when they go to their doctor. But it's been an incredible journey over the past few years. I've made hundreds, if not thousands of videos now where I dispel different inequities that exist, whether it's about socioeconomic status, homelessness, or even things like climate change and health and how we need to be thinking about that. Or, of course, artificial intelligence. And so I talk a lot about that. And we'll talk about this later about how you change your brand over time. But my focus has kind of moved away from even just health equity conversations to really thinking about medicine as a whole and becoming an expert in health equity and thinking about things like how do we actually make AI work online for doctors? There's this whole kind of field out there where misinformation and disinformation is being spread by different parties. And as physicians, I always say we need to be online because 1 in 10 people get their medical information from online. If we're not out there combating the misinformation, putting accurate information out there, we're doing a disservice. But it's taken me everywhere from the White House, where we met a few years ago, to working on policy with the vice presidents and president's office, to working with brands from the WHO to the CDC to the FDA, and really trying to translate health information online for everyone so we can understand chronic conditions and other conditions that affect us all every single day.
I mean, drop the mic. Hello. How amazing is that work? It's so needed. You blow me away. Got to get you on my new AI series, the AI Download, out now. Launch this week, everyone. Check it out. I'm very proud of that. Shaine. Shaine has been instrumental in the influencer agreement for SAG-AFTRA. Let's talk about, which amazing, that, historic, because creators have been asking for more protections. How do we make sure there's pay equity, and we make sure that our contract is right, and all these things that it was a bit of the wild, wild west, and it is still right now. How has SAG entered this conversation? And I guess, what is the influencer agreement actually?
Oh boy. Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear her?
What? Yeah. Now we're going. Thank you. So basically, for those of you who don't know, SAG-AFTRA is it's a labor union that represents 160,000 professional performers. So actors, actresses, puppeteers, voiceover artists, you name it, we represent people in front of a moving camera or behind the microphone. But what's really been cool, and what I've been so passionate about, is that creators, content creators, influencers have increasingly been part of the conversation and part of this community.
Yeah.
So in 2017, we started to...
We need to, wait, is your mic loud enough?
Yeah, I think her
Closer.
mic is... Yeah,
Go
yeah.
really close.
You can
Just-
tell I am not in entertainment. I'm behind the scenes. So basically, in 2017, we started really looking at ways that SAG-AFTRA could better support the creator community, making sure that they had protections when working with brands specifically, because it is so much the wild, wild west. And also to be able to use some of those earnings to make sure that they're qualifying for health insurance and to get a pension. Things that are really important as creators look to building sustainable careers. So I can go on and on about how it works. I won't do that right now. But what's really been incredible is to see how many lives have been changed, not just creators who are using these contracts to get those benefits, but also, traditional talent who are starting to venture into the creator space and are doing so with the protection of their union behind them. So that's been really, really exciting to see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just want to speak to that too.
So needed. We have some claps back here.
Yeah.
'Cause it is so needed, by the way. And thank you for taking a stand. The first union to do so.
Yeah, it's just so reassuring, growing up, and like I said, being so young and paying my union dues for decades now, and now I'm 41. There were so many crappy movies that I did just to get health insurance, and it happens to all actors and whatever, but it was specifically so that I could qualify. And I remember talking to Shaine and just having this huge light bulb go off in my head, and I was just like, this is just, being a creator is just the gift that keeps on giving. And it's so synergistic with, so much traditional talent is starting to enter the podcast space. And in doing that, I've produced a bunch of podcasts. I'm not currently doing podcasts right now, to note, but it's really wild to have to educate my friends and colleagues about how to post, how to go viral, how to, tag things properly so that the sponsor is happy. And it's like, it's a very steep learning curve for them if they don't have management. But, it's wonderful to see them grow and then kind of learn that might help them with SAG as well. So it's very at first it feels like an echo chamber, but then it's like you acclimate to being a creator as traditional talent. And then you're like, wow, there's a home for me here.
So just to clarify, so traditional talent obviously have their credits that they get as part of the union. They join the union. As they do projects, they get credits that contribute, right, to them hitting a certain amount to then get these perks. For creators, then how does that work? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so in SAG-AFTRA, the way it works, can you guys, am I doing this right? Okay. So it's not credits so much for on-camera principles, what we consider on-camera talent, it's earnings. So what we did is we kind of looked at how creators are earning most of their money, not all of their money. And we said, let's tackle brand deals first, right? Because that seems to be consistent across the entire creator community. And how do we allow them to use their brand deals to help them qualify? So there's a few ways this works. One is that you're working with a brand or an agency who is going to support you under a union contract, and that is the gold standard because they're making your contributions on your behalf. You're protected in case there's some issue with like late payment. The union can go after it for you or misuse of that content. The union is there as the resource and the muscle, right? And then we also created kind of what I call the safety net option so that if your brand partner is not willing or able to enter into a relationship with SAG-AFTRA, you as a creator are able to take ownership of that SAG-AFTRA coverage and you can make it a union project and then use those contributions to help you get those benefits.
That's key. That's very key to anyone listening.
Okay, that's really interesting. When we talk about sustainability, welcome everyone. Yes, come sit down. Welcome to this great conversation. The theme of this is sustainability. I want to know from each of you what sustainability means to you in the creator economy. Patrick.
Well, I think one thing that you mentioned earlier was so insightful, which is when you kind of were talking about changing your bio. I think the industry changes so quickly. We know this. Content changes quickly. Trends change quickly. The platforms, the algorithm, the ways that audiences interact with us. And I think what's so important, again, it's just to kind of reiterate what you said, Shira, is that we have to be willing to be flexible and to find new avenues of like ideas and content and speaking points. And that's not to say that we can't always, nor that we shouldn't be maintain the things that our audiences have known for us. But I think audiences really want to grow with us, right? Like if I've had an audience for the last 10 years, they're different people, I'm different people, the social media, the world is different. And I think that anybody wants to grow with you. But just as important, you're going to continue bringing in new audiences to the fold. And those new audiences are going to be attracted to the things that you're talking about in the moment. And so the more that you can continue to, I mean, if I were to just sort of like put it in a nutshell, the more that you can continue to be inspired and creative yourself and think about what it is that really gets your engine going as a creator. Why do you like to create? Why do you like to put things out there? And I say this, it's a little bit speaking to myself too. I know as a, 10 plus years in the industry as a full-time creator, it can become challenging sometimes. But continuing to be willing to just look back, reflect what it is that, why do I create? Why am I a creative person? What is it that I like talking about? What am I being inspired by in the industry, in the world? What can I then bring back to my content so that I'm both staying true to myself, but also being willing to change and be flexible? That to me is honestly the greatest form of sustainability, because then all of the other like specifics in terms of where's the money coming from, where are your audiences the largest, are you now larger on TikTok than you are on Instagram, or now you're like digging back into YouTube, all of those things will sort of like you'll be supported by all of those things because you've sort of stayed true to like your own kind of North Star.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a bit of that North Star thing. It reminds me of like Ikigai, if you've heard, which I'm probably gonna totally butcher this, but like the thing you love, your passion, what the world needs and where you can make money. And like I feel for that always is the framework I look at when I'm feeling like this isn't really working. Like, I know I could see out there where the industry is spending money, but do I like that? Am I good at that? Yes, great, let's go. No, all right, let's pivot. So like, a few years ago, I also hit a plateau wall a few years ago, and I got into Web3, the blockchain, crypto, NFTs, don't hate me. But it was actually really fun for a bit, and really creative community, amazing women in this space. I was really inspired. And I was getting a lot of money in 2022 for that space. And then it hit a wall, clearly, right? The bear market happened, and then the whole industry fell apart. And I was like, this doesn't feel authentic to me anymore. And I had to say, okay, let's get back to my roots. I'm a creator. I've been in the creator economy forever. Why aren't I talking about that? I have insights. I'm in emerging tech, not just Web3. Now I'm looking at AI. So these moments that could be looked at as a failure moment or a what the F moment, it was like, okay, this is a moment to reflect. Yes.
I'm that made me think of Little Nas right now, and how Little Nas is kind of rebranding right now on TikTok, and how Little Nas, pronouns are he, yeah, it's Little Nas
pronouns.
Yeah, I don't want to misgender. Okay, I think so. I'm just saying. So I think like he's doing such a great job of somehow straddling his youth and being like still so cool and so himself. And I just can't wait to hear the music that he's going to come out with next.
Yes.
But before, he had plateaued for months and months and months. But it's almost like he made it work to his advantage, because now it's like we're starved to see what that new relaunching is going to be. And right now I've seen a couple things that he's posted over the last few days, and it's like all pink cowboy Western stuff. And I'm like, is this leading to something? Like, what are we doing here? So it's never too late, even if you're in a plateau place, for you to relaunch yourself. And so back to that, like, changing of the bio. But the sustainability thing, it's tough. I mean, it's exhausting. I have 2 children. I'm, a suburban mom, and like, I'm just, there's a lot of things I want to do and I can't necessarily show up for. I don't live in California anymore, or New York, where I'm originally from. So it's a really, you do feel a little, every single one of us, I think, can relate to this at this point. I think it was like, at first we all thought we were unique, but now it's like, I'm seeing like we're all struggling. We're struggling with that plateauing and that authenticity and that niching down and those conversions, and we're all doing it. So just know that we're all in it. And I think it's the war of attrition. It's the person that just doesn't quit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to second everything that's being said, I think sustainability is adaptability, right? It's being able to be adaptable to whatever environment that you're joining. If we think about social media, it's everything that we've just said, the fact that the algorithm is changing all the time, that there's different money coming in for different places, which influences what you talk about, that politics is changing all the time, and that influences the type of content that we see online as well. And so when I think about sustainability, it's understanding a larger system overall and how those forces actually impact your specific niche. So when I think about my medical field, I know medicine interacts with everything, right? It interacts with medicine and pop culture. If there's a celebrity that gets a specific illness, I'm able to talk about that illness and use it as an education point. Or on the other hand, if there's something that's happening in politics that's going to impact someone when it comes to Medicaid or Medicare, it's a learning opportunity to teach. And everything that we're doing, and no matter how we're creating content, is about entertainment. You can be entertaining through education, through humor, through showing different things that someone could potentially go buy. But at the end of the day, it's figuring out how do you continue to keep interest from your audience, and that's by being adaptable to the systems. But to adapt to the systems, we have to understand how they're changing as well.
Shaine, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I love everything you guys said. You all hit it totally. I want to offer another perspective on sustainability, kind of from the business side. So not as
yes,
fun.
I want to get into that, the business.
Okay, all right. But I was just going to say, in my view, part of being sustainable and ensuring that you have a sustainable career is making sure that your partnerships work for you and that you're not working for your partnerships necessarily, right? And so in terms of making sure that you're not conflicting yourself out unintentionally of other opportunities, or you're not binding yourself to deal terms that are not going to work for you in the long term, or actually going to financially hinder your ability to create a sustainable living, is something that I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited about, because, not many creators actually read their contracts. And we can talk about that more a little bit, but I think it's super important.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, I mean, you're also, Patrick, a manager and you're a creator. Like, let's get into the business. What really people should know, the blind spots right now, what is happening, what have been the recent learnings for each of you in terms of how you're approaching your contracts, businesses, budgeting, all of it.
I'd say one place that I like to start is that, and this is kind of also maybe a final point on the last question about sustainability, like, all of us have gone through ebbs and flows. And this happens in the creator space. It happens in the acting space, the traditional, any creative is going to be at a peak. And then at different times, you're going to be in a valley. And there's just no way around it. So knowing that we all go through that, I think is very important. So how can we plan for the future to be sustainable? And I think that also is sort of a lot of what you're talking about, right, Shaine? It's like, making sure that your contracts are working for you. It doesn't just have to be a good paycheck right now. What is in that agreement to ensure that you're set up for success a year from now, or at a certain term? One of the things that we like to do as my managers, we set up at least twice a year. We have a meeting with our talent in which we set up our kind of like goalposts for the next 6 months and for the year. And we're thinking about things from financial goals, from long-term kind of North Star goals, brand building, brand alignment, dream brands to work with. And it's very easy in the constant churn of the creator life to just take the next deal that comes your way and think, what do I do with this right now? It's so much more important to take a holistic, long-term view of this and say, how does this impact my next year? How does this impact my dream that I'm trying to work for 3 years from now? And taking that picture into account really helps you make better decisions about, sometimes it's, I really want to work with this brand. It doesn't have as much money, but I know that it's taking me in a direction that I'm really excited to go. Or I really love this brand and this paycheck is really great, but the terms in the contract honestly just aren't going to work with me. I think the other thing, I mean, obviously I have a management agency, so it's so important to have a team of people who can like really help support you in these things, because it's honestly, whether it's a spouse, I know many creators have a personal partner in their life, or a management team, it's so important because there are so many details to be going through at any given day to kind of like make these decisions. Some of the more even granular things about, usage. I think many of us who are more
oh my God, exclusivity and usage. One, like,
exclusivity.
Be
and
careful. Usage, they should be paying more.
You can maximize the value of that partnership by ensuring you're getting paid for that usage. And you also need to make sure that you're not getting taken advantage. But those are some sort of like baseline things that I think will help you see the bigger picture and also make more money.
Christy,
I would be remiss if I didn't mention like Romano and okay, so Romano is, I think they've changed, but there's something called deal factoring that has helped in my sustainability as somebody who doesn't have exclusive management. And so in my experience, something that has helped me from deal to deal and to be less picky about certain deals that are falling below a certain price point for me, it's kind of like, okay, great, we have this thing that is net 60, but if you go to an Orex or a Romano or some other factoring companies that are, if you can find them and they're good partners to work with, I highly recommend, talking to them and reaching out to them or DMing them. And, I think, they make a little bit of a little commission, but you're getting your money the day that you sign your contract, and you're not having to wait net 60, net 90, net 30. And it gives the average creator a little wiggle room to live your life. And I don't know, it's just something I would be doing a disservice to you guys as creators if I didn't mention that type of thing.
I'm seeing a lot of nods out there from when it comes to like net 60, net 30. Like that's a huge problem. We talked about this at the White House about how there needs to be protections around that, right?
There should be, I agree.
There often isn't, right?
Yeah.
Where sometimes it's past net 90 and we still haven't gotten paid. It's like, what do you do? But from my end, like for the first 2 years I was on my own, so I was just doing my own content. I really liked it, doing my own brand deals. I made sure to read the contracts. And it was in reading the contracts I realized that many creators lose out on opportunities to actually figure out how do you protect yourself. I always say that, yes, it's important to have a team, but you need to understand your own contract. Even though I have a team now, I read my own contract still. Because it's possible that something's missed or something that I realize that like, hey, why haven't we ever done it this way? I think when you come in with fresh eyes from someone never negotiating, you start to ask different questions. So one of the things that one of my friends and I always talk about is the fact that like, if it's a net 90, why not add on like a 2 times, like a clause in there that you have to pay 2 times whatever the amount was that you're originally going to pay if it's going to be late. And that's actually added a lot of dollars on the table because one brand's unfortunately, like you would think that would get them to actually pay sooner. It doesn't. And so now you just make more, right? And I'm okay waiting 90 days if I get 2 times it because you were slow on it. But I think reading your own contract is really important for all creators here, even if you have a team, because it helps you build that business acumen because at the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have an agent. You know, it's 10%. I know there's a lot of management now that do 20. You really need to know what's comfortable for you. I feel because I bring a lot of deals to the table. I don't feel comfortable with someone taking 20 if they didn't bring it to the table. I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm just giving you my insights. And it's not sustainable to have someone if you're doing a lot of the work. But if they want to be a co-sales person with you and help negotiate, I'll let you take 10. I give it to my agent. Even my agent doesn't bring the deal to the table. I've even gotten better at bringing it to him because of that protection. You need to have someone else in there to have their eyes on the contract and the relationship. Not to say this, but to be the bad cop. You need someone else there, or else people will take advantage. Even the best dynamics, the best relationships, you start off on the best foot, you never know what happens.
Well, and you know, everybody's brands are doing business, so they're going to make their first pass of the contract is going to be most beneficial to them. They may very well be happy to negotiate, but if you're not going to step up to the plate and do that, you're just going to give all of the leverage to them. Just a few other terms to kind of mention, because I think these are just like important things for people, for creators to be aware of. Mutual indemnification is always important to include in a contract. Something over the past 2 or 3 years that we've been really focused on also is reverse morals clauses. Morals clauses are often things that brands always have, which basically says, if you as talent fuck up and do something that's like horrendous, we can get out of this because we, morally, reprehensible, we don't want to be attached to you. You as talent can also go back to the table and say, if you as a brand do something morally reprehensible, like get rid of your, DEI program and then like fuck up all of your shit over there, then I need to have some ability to extricate myself from this agreement too. So there are also things that aren't just financially related, but are very important in terms of your alignment with brands that are important to keep in mind.
Thank you for that. Yes. Okay, Shaine.
So no, on that note, we're about to launch this really cool resource that's going to be publicly available that I hope everyone will check out just to help with that demystification of some of these brand terms that are scary and legalese. It's going to be the top 10 things SAG-AFTRA recommends to be in your talent agreement. So it's not going to be a template. It's not going to take place of your manager, agent, or lawyer looking at things. But just so you understand, when I'm looking at, exclusivity, what does that mean? Right? So please keep your eyes open. It's going to be available on our website. But we really believe that whether you're a SAG-AFTRA member or not, a rising tide lifts all ships. So as much as we as a community can all be playing from the same, starting line, we're all going to thrive. So that's my 2 cents.
Which is why I also think it's important to not be gatekeepers. Like this industry, we're in the middle of history of growing it together. If we keep the wins to ourselves, another person doesn't get to know about it and continue that. So we're at a time, and I hope this continues, like to let people know secrets, hacks, tips, tricks. I said hats instead of hacks, I think. It is so important. And I see this happening on threads, and it's hard to know if it's real or not, but like sharing rates, even if you publicly or privately, how many times did I get actually a better contract because someone shared, well, they gave me this. Maybe I wasn't getting that, right? Like that's how we support each other. And the industry is better when we're better together. So I just want to encourage that.
One more shout out that I want to give. I was the chairman of the board for the American Influencer Council for about 2 years. It's a great organization. I'm still a member. And right now, so just in terms of resources and information, if you sort of follow them on Instagram, subscribe to their newsletter, become a member, definitely valuable, especially when it comes to, there's been a lot of work recently done, I think, highlighting what the term that they're using is the creator middle class, which I think is so much to this point of like sustainability. There are so many of us creators who don't necessarily fall in the top 1% of the, name a, famous YouTuber. We're not making that kind of money. And we're maybe not that visible, but we're making real money. We are entrepreneurs. All of these questions are things that we're thinking about regularly, and we do need to be able to have the support and navigate. So the American Influencer Council, I think, is really important. And I think I would also be remiss to say one of the things that I've loved about building an agency is it's given me the ability to kind of have that community that I didn't have either, just in terms of resource sharing. Obviously, the managers who are managing talent can speak to one another and share more about what the landscape of race looks like. And so it's always valuable from that standpoint. But even having an agency, and one that I feel very strongly about the way that we've done this, and being able to give creators themselves a way to communicate and talk a little more candidly about some of these things too is important.
I do want to open it up just to some questions. If anyone has a question, you could come up here. Otherwise, I'm going to have my final. Does anyone have a question here for our panelists? Anyone? This is your chance. Come on. Yes. What's your name? I feel like I'm what's your name? Wait, come here. Give it up for our first person to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Donovan Curry. I'm actually here based in Austin. Can y'all hear me? Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right, so I'm based in Austin. So I executive produce a series called Flavors, and I lead brand partnerships for FaZe Clan. So I'm really in the creator economy, especially with their new rebrand. So, many creators, they focus like really on short-term brands, but longevity, I think, is like really the key. What is, I guess, the most underrated revenue source that you would say?
Thank you for that. He asked, what's your most underrated revenue source right now?
Affiliate sales. I mentioned this to a friend earlier. Gary Vee is talking a lot about the QVCification of content. If you guys saw that, it's definitely one of his more viral videos, and I think that's where it's headed. And the affiliate stuff, I think, is a really great way for creators to make money for themselves. Amazon. I prefer Amazon, although I'm on LTK and there's ShopMy and there's all these places. But I do think that as we move forward and people are going to continue to niche, it should be interesting to see the way that managers kind of go, and they probably already are, but kind of dip into that, because it's all sort of in the same management. Like when you're talking about seeing your creators twice a year, it's all affecting all of that strategy. But as an independent creator with non-exclusive management, it's just really kind of like, great, I can do this and try to get those sponsorship deals as well, and sort of only do the products that at that moment I feel like are a part of my life. So like I had an accident a couple weeks ago, and I've been focusing on skincare. Like all my stuff has been about recovering from this accident I had in skincare, and it is going really well. So that's just me being authentic and sort of also kind of processing what was really going down for me in real time.
I'll jump in with a little bit of a different one that's related to the creator economy, but I think speaking engagements, things like this. I think people undersell the fact that there are corporate brands that want to hear your voice. And so all the brands that you've worked with, you can speak there. And they will pay you a lot of money for 30 minutes, an hour to speak about your experience with the brand. And I think even beyond that, so whether it's like leaning into whatever your niche is, like and figuring out how do I bring this story to the masses, I think a lot of people undersell that. And then secondarily, I think building actual businesses that you can sell off that are related to whatever content you create. So one of the things I'm working on right now, and actually I see my co-producer here, Dr. Jose Mori, who's a radiologist, is a TV show. I'm working on a digital TV show with YouTube right now called The Doctor Is In. And it's a mixed reality, animated, and in-person TV show. So think Doc McStuffins meets Blue's Clues. And the whole idea, And so the whole idea is to get young kids 3 to 8 years old really interested in STEM. But the idea is eventually to be able to license this out. So there's a whole new revenue stream that comes from licensing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also working on a book. So there's a whole other revenue stream too. And so I think never underselling yourself as a creator, realizing that there's all these different outlets that you connect to in order to advance whatever your mission is. But I think it starts with figuring out your why. And so that once you understand your why, you can figure out where can I spread out my brand essentially and start to diversify it into other areas.
And one thing to add to that, because I have this sort of eagle-eye view over our talent, our talent roster. Every creator is going to be different in terms of where they're actually going to be able to really bring in revenue. For some people on our roster, they're incredible at conversion and affiliates, but that's not necessarily the case with everybody. The people who are maybe less, who are less focused on affiliates, actually are getting really high numbers when it comes to like brand deals, the sort of like brand awareness campaigns. Whereas other time, and just to be clear, I don't want to have misspoke. My managers talk to our talent every day. Twice a year, there's like an in-depth strategy session. but they're literally talking every day because it's important for your team to like really help identify these opportunities. Who are you as a person? What makes you tick? And what are the things that are happening right now that can provide tertiary, secondary and tertiary kind of like financial opportunities? So it really is going to be different for everybody, whether it's on-camera opportunities, a product line, a book, podcast, media appearances, speaking engagements, affiliate. All of these things are options. And I think it's great to know about what your options are and then be able to figure out what your kind of superpower is and which direction you should focus on.
Yeah, and figure out how you communicate that, whether it be on your socials, your website, or in person. When someone says like, so how do you make money? Or how do I work with you? Like you can choose like, okay, consulting. For me, at least I say, well, I consult, I advise, I do brand partnerships. You can work with my company, What's Trending. I'm now also working on like a book. I do speaking engagements. So knowing what works for you, like I'm not an affiliate girl as much. I would love to get into it. Just hasn't been my thing. I just started a podcast. Like I'll be doing that, but I'm not relying on just like podcast numbers. It's like integrations and reach across all my social for that integration. So getting creative with how you're building that, I think is really important, or else we might get inside our heads being like, well, I don't have these numbers, or I'm not this big or this, that. Like there's ways to get creative with it to bring value to a brand across, all the levers that you have.
Totally. And I meant to mention newsletters too. I mean, obviously that's such a big topic right now. And when you're really talking about these other avenues and these other platforms, you're really getting into this sort of like niche audience, the most engaged parts of your audience. And those are really, really valuable to sell to a brand. And obviously, I mean, I think kind of what you were saying, Shira, you may start out with a conversation with a brand that really just wants to sort of like post on Instagram or TikTok. But when you have the opportunity to have a real conversation and say, here's where my audiences are across all of these platforms, and we can actually, here's a package that includes all of these, something in the newsletter, a mention here, it can include a post on TikTok syndicated to Reels, you can really increase the value of that. Or you can say like, okay, maybe your budget isn't large enough for me to do a TikTok post, but I do have an engaged audience through my newsletter, and let's work there.
And I would just finally say, don't forget the power of IRL. Look at this, how an event that, we all met, maybe newsletters, social media, we know each other, we came together here, and that's valuable for brands, right? And so I think that's going to be a trend we're going to see more and more. And I know so many people here that do their own local events in the creator economy community, and they're, making money through that. And so it's not, I think we get so worried about the following, right? And the reach and this, that, but there's ways to get creative to bring value. And it's not just online anymore. I think IRL connections are definitely going to be where it's at. Any other questions? Oh, okay. We have one more and then I'll wrap it up here. Where are you from? What do you do? What's your question?
Hello, I'm Brandon Jenkins. I'm a sports writer for CBS, and I just want to know, can y'all go more in depth about like how you can bring value to a brand if you have under like 10,000 followers?
So under 10,000 followers, great job, and congrats on the gig, CBS sports writer. Yes. How do you bring value to a brand if you have under 10,000 followers?
I can start with that. I think you niche and figure out what are the brands that your audience already is connecting with. Why are people following you and sharing your individual passions? I think there's a lot more UGC, user-generated content out there too. Meaning you don't even have to have followers now to make money by creating videos. It's about how do you create some piece of content that shows authentically your relationship with a brand. And so I would say start reaching out to brands that you already like and that you use every day in your life already, and mention that you're a smaller creator, micro creator. And a lot of brands actually want to work with micro creators because often those communities are more engaged. They're smaller communities, so they feel like they can actually talk more within the comments or share things. And so reaching out specifically to those brands you want to work with, mentioning that you're a micro influencer, that you have an engaged audience, that here's XYZ, what we focus on, sharing the classic things like the demographics of whether the audience is, and then really leaning into the fact that you're a small creator and making it a positive, not a negative.
And maybe two quick things I'll say on that is, one, if you have a smaller audience, you really are looking more at engagement than the numbers. The number of followers really doesn't matter. If you have incredible engagement, a lot of people who are like, tuning into what you have to say, that's important. Also, when you do have a smaller overall size of following, you're probably going to be more valuable to brands that are looking for a specific niche audience versus a sort of like general lifestyle kind of, brand. Brands that are focused more on like a lifestyle audience are usually looking for kind of like larger brand awareness. So if you can kind of identify a specific niche that you fit into and really go after both content that fits that niche and brands who fit that, the micro creator size is going to be really valuable in that space.
And if I can just add one more thing, I think because we see brand deals that range from like $100 in the micro influencer space to like multi-million dollars with the biggest A-listers. And I will just say, as a smaller creator, really be mindful of usage rights. I see a lot of brands really maybe don't think that you are reading that part of the contract. Just be very mindful of it because that's valuable to you as a creator.
I don't know if anyone else, but as we wrap, let's do a final word, right? Final word here today. What is your advice to, I would say, creators, creatives, those in the industry here today? What do you want to see in 2025 and moving forward? If you had to share, one piece of advice and what you're excited about. And then I would say, lastly, where to find you or any shameless plug.
I can start. I think my word would be there's room for everybody. This is a fragmented economy, which has its pros and cons. But one of the pros is that any of us who are passionate about creating, who find a space online, have room to grow an audience and speak to that audience. So don't be discouraged whether you have a large following and you have and you're plateauing, or whether you're a small creator who really wants to grow. There's truly room for everybody, and the platforms allow us to really connect to the audiences. So I'd say, that would be my word. You can find me. I'm a guy named Patrick on Instagram. My agency is Untitled Secret. You can find us online and at Untitled Secret on Instagram.
I would say dig deep, don't give up. It's like quitting is just not an option. And if you really believe in that, I think you'll probably hit a lot more goals than you think you could ever hit. But you really have to believe in yourself. You have to be a little delulu with it being as saturated of a market. But just dig deep, don't quit. That's my final word. You can find me on Instagram as the Christy Carlson Romano. I'm on TikTok, I believe, as Christy Carlson Romano. I'm
Your
there.
podcasts everywhere.
Yeah, I have podcasts, but for the most part, I'm focusing on that. I'm writing a memoir right now.
Okay.
And so I'm more focused on my feeds right now, to be honest with you. I've kind of pared down and just really focused on authenticity and network and also like living my life. Like I think while also digging deep, like find your balance. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it can be like you can lose yourself in this crazy game. And so just don't lose yourself, but dig deep and commit to that. So I know that's a lot of different ways to look at it, but I think y'all get it.
Love it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I think for me, it's find your why. What is it that makes you come alive? And run for that, because that'll make it easy when you create content. And then my other piece of advice would be leaning to storytelling. I think storytelling is one of the most powerful things. If you think about our nature as humans, is to tell stories. It's to share the things that we love, the things that we're scared of, the things that we're fearful of with the loved ones around us. And that's really what makes social media tick. If you want to learn more about like how to do that, one of the books I recommend is called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. One of my favorite books, and they go through this model called success: simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, in a story. And it's great because it really helps you break down how do you make ideas stick, which is what we're all trying to do on social media. If you want to find me, you can find me anywhere on social media: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. My @'s just my name, @JoelBervell. If you want to check out my podcast, it's called The Dose with the Commonwealth Fund. If you want to check out the animated TV show one day when it's coming out, it's going to be launched in May. We're collaborating with YouTube right now, so it'll be The Doctors in Show on YouTube.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Shane.
Okay, I have two. One is to lean into community. I know that as a creator, it sometimes feels very lonely and like you're, just doing it on your own, but you have a community of folks who are navigating the same challenges and opportunities. So, speaking as a labor union, there's power in numbers, right? Come together, share information. Don't gatekeep that good information. And then also know your worth, right? It's really exciting to get opportunities, but just know that you are very valuable. Your platform has value. You have value. Your voice has value. So just keep that in mind. And if you ever are in need of some, guidance on the matter, you can reach out. You can find us at SAG-AFTRA, and I am at Shaine Madeleine. So thank you.
Amazing work you're doing. And on that note, knowing your worth, knowing your value, don't just work on your content, keep on working on yourself, right? You can't bring your best self to the work you do if this is empty, right? So please take care of yourself. I have my company, What's Trending. We're a co-host, but I also have launched an initiative called Creators for Mental Health. And we're looking to bring mental well-being and advocacy work and action to the creator economy. So definitely hit me up if you want to get involved. We'll be doing events, content, bringing some services and support to the space, hopefully working more with SAG-AFTRA. And really what I want to see is us creating a more safer, healthier space together. And that's what it's really about. So we could all, there are peaks and valleys and all of that. This is life, but at least we could go through it in a better way and know that we're not alone. And I think that's really important for me. And that was, I guess, my final word here today. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us today. I want to thank, I didn't say Passionfruit or Get Response to our amazing co-hosts because they've been great. Get up for James Dell at Passionfruit. Where is he? Who produced this? Yes. Found this venue, this beautiful venue. Have a great rest of your South by Southwest. Follow everyone here. Check out what they're doing. And we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.